Welcome to the Ryan Holtz Show. On this show, you can expect the latest, the greatest, and the best curated content on business, marketing, automotive, and lifestyle. Sit back, put in your earplugs, and let's enjoy the ride. Now, as always, I want to make sure you get the best in content that will help you monster your goals, both personally and professionally. I want to keep this conversation going, so please check me out on Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope at Ryan Holtz1. And then go over to facebook.com/Ryan Holtz Marketing, and we can chat there too. I also want you to visit www.ryanholtz.ca, as this will be where I put my almighty beloved show notes. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I am proud to bring you the Ryan Holtz Show. Let the beat drop and enjoy. Hello. The day has come. I have been totally procrastinating on this podcast for quite some time now. And I really have no excuse other than just to say that, it's the life of the entrepreneur. We've been busy. We've been on the planes. We've been servicing clients. We've been getting our 2017 plan up and at 'em. We've been paying taxes. We've been enjoying life. We've been doing all those great things. So I want to use this first episode just to introduce you to the Ryan Holtz Show. And the reason I wanted to create this show is I wanted something that was unedited, something almost like a vehicle or a voice or a channel where I could just literally be myself and say and do whatever the heck I want. And I want to bring my thoughts in my brain out to you and your brain. And, being in business and being an entrepreneur, new father, I'm expecting my son. My wife and I are expecting our son in the next little while here, actually, just over a week. And there's no better way to celebrate than getting this podcast up and running. And you know what? I think I really got to really say that, in talking to people, in the auto industry and in the real estate industry, and some of the feedback and the comments that I've got is people are really looking to change things up. It's 2016. If you're in digital marketing, if you're in social media, if you're a brand manager, if you're a chief marketing officer, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, personally, I think if you're breathing and you have a mobile phone in your hand, you really are seeing what is going on in the world today. And I really want to say that, I'm not going to discuss a whole lot of politics on here. I like to stick away from politics and keep neutral when it comes to that space. But being in Canada, we're always watching what the United States is doing. And seeing this presidential election with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump has really been something to watch. And keeping my opinions aside, I just kind of think it's a circus. And there's a lot of major issues going on out there. Everybody wants to talk about healthcare, education, employment, jobs, economy, and it's really turned into a circus, almost that of a daytime soap opera. And I really want to, accentuate the fact that don't fall into the circus, but really pay attention to what's going on. I'm based in Edmonton, Alberta. So everybody knows that Alberta is an oil hotbed, and if the oil's doing well, we're doing well. If the oil's not doing well, we're not doing well. And anybody in Alberta knows that you literally have to stack your pennies and save up for a rainy day. So let's get to the matter at hand here. What are we going to be talking about on the Ryan Holtz Show? We're going to be talking about lifestyle, and lifestyle is going to consist of a little bit of motivation. We're going to be talking a little bit about clothing. We're going to be talking about fashion. Maybe we'll even be talking a little bit about fatherhood, motherhood, and just kind of the current events of what's going on. I sense that when I'm going out and I'm traveling right now, I take the Edmonton to Toronto flight, literally about 20, 30 times a year. And the last few times I've been on that flight, it's not so busy, and you really can feel the effects of what's going on with the economy. And, it's in our everyday life that we really, really, really see who we are and discover our own feelings, discover our own possibilities, and discover our own aspirations. I literally have a folder in my phone that says brain relief. And what that is if I get a random thought or a random idea, I literally write it down because I find that there's so much information coming at you in such a high volume that what do you do with all this information? And furthermore, where do you put the information? And the most important is how do you execute on the information? So I find that this podcast will be symbolically kind of a reference to how I see things going and kind of my blueprint. I do blog and I enjoy that. The YouTube vlog thing, it's something that's really interested in me. I mean, when you look at the works of Casey Neistat and how he documents his journey with his wife and his daughter, it really is amazing. He truly is a movie creator. He's an artist, and I mean the way he makes his YouTube films is impressive. But what's more impressive is how he natively makes them to reflect the generation that's using YouTube and really has that ADD, which is that attention deficit disorder. I want this podcast to be a two-way forum, so I will be doing some interviews with people in the industry of auto and real estate. I do enjoy real estate and maybe some stocks. I enjoy stocks and day trading and things of such. I will be doing interviews with random people who literally just have a different perspective on what's going on out there. It's amazing. The topic of public speaking always comes up, and I find it to be a topic that is highly opinionated because a lot of people really have a fear of public speaking. But it's amazing. Once you go into a crowd and you speak to people, you really start to engage, kind of like when you're in high school. You had the kids that sat at the front and you had the kids that sat at the back. And then you had the kids that sometimes would just stand and kind of pretend like they weren't there. And I think majority of people really have a fear of public speaking, but really have a fear of being called upon. And what I find is that they're just scared to maybe tell or give an answer that might be wrong or something that is not of the common. And this podcast is derived off that. It's derived off, give those answers that you think might be wrong, because sometimes the creative and the juice, that it really is in those answers. And I think that people really have to come out of their cocoons a little bit and show who you are. My father-in-law is a brilliant man, and I have a lot of respect for him, not because I'm trying to earn brownie points because he's my wife's dad, but he really is genius. And I think there's this intellectual sense of currency, meaning I'm smart and I'm going to keep those ideas, and I got a lifelong worth of an encyclopedia in my brain, and I'm going to keep all that information myself. And me and him were talking the other day, and it was really interesting because we got onto the subject of, well, how come he hasn't written a book? Why wouldn't he write a book? I mean, he's a computer engineer and made a fortune in real estate. And how does a computer engineer, which when you really think about the psychology of a human brain, how does an engineer who's very linear thinking take risks as an entrepreneur and buy properties that he's never even seen in a different city, trying to get ahead because he knows that maybe his 9 to 5 is not going to get him to where he wants to go in life? And it's interesting to hear his perspective. And, sometimes people are under the influence that, hey, I put in the work to learn this information and to understand this information. Why would I want to share this information and give it away, maybe for free? And my kind of counter statement to that is, if any guys ever, went to somebody who makes a custom suit, literally a custom suit, and it's hard to find somebody who can make a custom suit like that old school craftsmanship of tailoring. And what you find is, even when my wife and I were in Italy, you're going around, you're looking at the way these suits are tailored, and it's just amazing to see the way they're tailored. But then you talk to them and it's like, well, who's going to take over that person's skill set and knowledge when that person passes on? So you have this beautiful framework of craftsmanship that virtually might never ever get passed on, because we have this thought process of intellectual currency. And intellectual currency really is currency. I mean, knowledge is power, but it's like, don't you want to invest that currency back out? And I've been really fortunate to meet a lot of people who have invested that back out. And as I sit down, I just kind of I honestly I shut up and I listen, because I'm just like, this person has so much knowledge and so much gold that I just want a chance to be a part of that. So again, this podcast, we're talking about lifestyle. We're gonna do interviews. We're gonna talk to people that maybe are afraid to kind of put their thoughts out there, but we're gonna talk about business, and we're gonna talk about a millennial, and the millennial, which I heard the speaker a few weeks back refer to as, he's basically saying, why is everybody referring to millennials as like they're an alien? And it's kind of true, because a millennial statistically is between that age range of 18 and 35. I'm 32 years old, so I guess I'm considered a millennial, but you can't talk about a certain segment of population like they're an alien. So, I mean, we're all talking to millennials. You have kids. If you're in a room, you're walking in a mall, you're on the train, you're on the bus. We're all talking about, we all know millennials. So I think the code word for millennial is just human being. So when I open up my iPhone, and I stream through my Facebook, I stream through my Instagram, I stream through my Snapchat, I stream through, I read, obviously emails and all that stuff. You're constantly seeing different stages of posting, and maybe it's called platforming, but, you see the people that are motivational. You see the people that are sharing their entire life. You see the people that are definitely not sharing too much and really cautious and cognizant of what they're sharing and what they're not sharing, but they're definitely watching and listening. And I do believe in the statistic where less than 10% of internet users are generating over 90% of the content, which means you have a lot of people sitting back and just relaxing and watching and observing what's going on. So, I find that very intriguing. So, coming back to what this show is going to be about, I am going to apologize up front if I'm rambling, because again, this show is not meant to be overly edited, but it's meant to be real talk about real content with real opinions and not overly edited. I invested in a good microphone. I invested in some good software. I'm going to host it so that you can hear the quality of the audio, and you can, at least enjoy that concept of it. But I'm not going to edit out a fumble. I'm not going to edit out maybe a bad word. I'm going to keep this extremely authentic. And it's kind of a challenge. And I'm going to be honest with everybody. Getting this podcast up and running, and this is real talk, is I think we all suffer from that syndrome of, is what we're saying of value, and is it good enough for other people to listen to? And I know that people that have, are on my Instagram or my social media or kind of followed a little bit of my journey say, well, geez, Ryan's doing all kinds of things. He's got a lot of stuff to say, but at the end of the day, I want you to know I'm human too. And I just really feel that, maybe what I got to say isn't of value. So was I procrastinating on not getting this podcast up, or was I a little fearful? I think I was a little fearful, because I think when you put it out there and opinions are going to be casted. So I'm hoping that everybody will listen to this first episode from front to back, and really give me your opinion on it, because I think that there's a sense of humility that's going to come through this podcast. And I think that one of the toughest things for a human being to do is take those good ideas that's in their brain, how they're kind of viewing it and digesting it, and then taking those same ideas and explaining them to the general population in a way that the general population can understand. And this podcast is going to be for that. It's an open mic, an open door. We're gonna have a conversation, and we're gonna do some really good business. off the podcast. We're going to talk about good business. We're going to have some cool guests. So if you know anybody that should be on this podcast as an interviewee, or you'd like me to interview, I would love for you to comment or reach over to my Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Periscope at Ryan Holtz 1, and just drop me a comment or a line and tell me, who I need to have on this show, so that we can have some real talk and some real interview. I want to express my complete gratitude because I know there's thousands and thousands of podcasts out there. And there's some really, really good ones. There's some really, really bad ones. So I know as soon as I upload this, I'm going to go into the podcast stratosphere, but I think that we can develop a good audience as long as we keep it real. We have the real talk, real content, and really just get down to it. I know that when you're listening to this podcast, you're going to have your earphones in, or maybe you're, going to bed. Maybe you're on the train to work. I know that being in Toronto when everybody's, getting on the public transportation, going downtown, they're on their podcast. I know people in Edmonton where I am, they're doing the same thing, and they're just trying to better themselves. I also know when people are in their vehicles, they got the podcast playing through the speakers because everybody's just trying to get ahead a little bit at a time and one step forward. I really think there's great people out there. I think that there's some really bad people out there. And I find both interesting because we all got one football field, if that's the analogy I'm going to use, to play on. And it really is what we're doing with our time. Eric Thomas, somebody I follow, love him to death. Average skill, phenomenal will. And, I can attest to that because I don't think I'm the smartest. I don't think I'm the greatest. I don't think I'm really the anything. I think that I know that I will work my butt off, and I'm going to work and work and work and work. You're going to learn from mistakes. And I know that this game is about relationships, and some relationships have to stick and some relationships have to go. And I think that in business, that's one of the hardest things to do is, understand when that relationship has reached that expiry date. So I did not get any kind of script ready for this first episode. I don't have any point notes. I don't have any talking points. I literally am sitting at my desk with a cup of coffee, looking at my figurine that I have. I got my dog Uma right beside me. I'm talking into your ear and completely giving this freestyle. So we're going to talk about lifestyle. We're going to talk about business. We're going to talk about the automotive sector because that's where I work in a lot in terms of my clients. We're going to talk about real estate because I also work in that field and have clients in that industry. We're going to talk about public speaking. We're going to talk about passive income. I mean, when you hear passive income, names like Pat Flynn come to mind because, Pat Flynn is phenomenal at that. And, shout out to Pat Flynn because I watched even some of his YouTube videos on how to create a podcast. And he gave, I think it's a 6-video series on YouTube of how to create your own podcast. And I literally saved it to my playlist and watched them over and over, probably 10 times each. And Pat, if you ever get to listen to this podcast, I probably did that because I was procrastinating on creating this podcast and just kind of, hopped up on the technical. But today we are getting the first one loaded up. I already got the artwork ready to rock. I'm going to put in the tags, make sure it's optimized, syndicated out to the different, iTunes and Google Play stores and stuff like that so everybody can listen to it. But this podcast is for you. This podcast is for me. And this podcast is for family, for my family. And, I love my wife. And our son is coming, as I said. We got our dog Uma, who's our daughter. And we're going to have some fun here. And I already got a little folder in my phone that says podcast topics and ideas. But again, I need you guys to support this and drop me a comment. You can send me an email to info@ryanholtz.ca about any podcast ideas that you'd like to see and any constructive feedback. I would love it. But again, I'm going to put this out there. I'm going to keep it authentic. I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to keep it raw. And this is episode 1. And I just want to say, it feels good. It feels good. I got to say, it really feels good. There's a sense of soberness through it, a sense of humility. And I think that it's a chance for me to put out some content and put out some viewpoints and share points that I haven't really seen from everybody else. And I think that's what makes me unique, but I also think it's what makes you unique and the people that I follow unique, because they're saying some certain things that, maybe I don't even agree with, but, just the fact that they're putting it out there. There's such a respect for that, because that is the fear. It is the fear of the unknown. So I'm going to close down this podcast. I'm going to invite everybody, and I'm not putting an outro to this podcast just so everybody knows, but I'm going to always end off the podcast by saying this. I need you to go to Twitter. I need you to go to Facebook. I need you to go to Instagram, Snapchat, Periscope, and I need you to follow me at Ryan Holtz 1. I'm going to follow you too. We're going to build that audience. We're going to have some fun. Visit the blog, ryanholtz.ca. And thanks so much for tuning in. This is episode 1, the intro to what is going to come. As far as the schedule and how often I'm going to release the podcast, I'm going to hold off on that commitment right now just because I do have a lot of time commitments and things, but I'm going to make sure that it's going to be a regular disbursement and it's not going to leave you hanging for months and months without another episode, okay? So stay on point. I love you all, and this is the Ryan Holtz Show, baby.